questions tonight surrounding the sudden death in a hotel room of this local paranormal investigator.
He was known for his haunted doll, Annabelle, from the Conjuring movies. The night team's Mike Cerullo is in the studio tonight.
Dan and Patrice, Dan Rivera died suddenly over the weekend at the age of 54 while showcasing the original Annabelle doll, which is said by some to be haunted. He devoted his life to sharing his knowledge of the supernatural.
Today on the Hollywood Drifter channel, we are going to be discussing the shocking and untimely death of paranormal investigator Dan Rivera. He died tragically after touring with the infamous Annabelle doll. Now, you can see in some videos of him actually taking the Annabelle doll out of the box that was put there many years ago by Ed and Lorraine Warren. Now, I don't believe that Annabelle doll was ever supposed to leave that box. And I don't believe that it was their intent for that doll to actually be touring the country the way it did.
Rivera was a chief organizer of the New England Society for Psychic Research, founded by the late Ed and Lorraine Warren, a pair associated with the Conjuring House.
And he was a very, very close friend to Lorraine Warren's, and he was her comfort in her last 4 years.
Johnson says Rivera took his work seriously. Here he is handling the infamous Annabelle doll. Careful not to touch her without gloves. Johnson says he constructed this case specifically for the doll.
He actually painted it with a mixture that contained holy water.
Still, Rivera's sudden death has sparked questions, with some wondering whether this supposedly haunted doll may have played a role.
It's completely weird. It's really time ago that you guys started out, but I know you've had thousands literally of cases.
Oh, God, yeah.
And I also know that you have a museum on your property.
Yes.
Now, Ed, would you want to just tell a little bit about some of the things, perhaps, that are in that museum that are really fascinating, scary things, perhaps, that you've collected over the years?
All right, I think one of the most famous would be Annabelle. Mm-hmm. This is a Raggedy Ann doll that's made like thousands of other dolls, except that this doll was used in communication, almost like having a seance. Mm-hmm. A nurse had received the doll 1971 as a present, a Christmas present from her mother. And the doll stands about 3 foot high, and she would take it to bed with her at night. That's common enough for girls to do. I take a pillow. Some people take a doll. Girls that like that, even 28-year-old ones. And after a few nights, she lived with another girl who was a nurse, both of them St. Hartford, or Hartford Hospital.
It was Hartford Hospital, honey.
And they were on the same shift, and so they worked together, they lived together, they shared the expenses. And one morning she got this idea to bring the doll from the bedroom into the kitchen where they were having breakfast, and she put it in a chair. And she said, "Oh, Raggedy Ann here's going to have breakfast with us today," joking around. Okay, well, that was a joke. Then, the next thing...
Bless you.
The next thing, she brought it down again the next morning, and the next morning. But the third morning, they're talking to the doll, and the arms of the doll are on the chair like this. Suddenly, they went up and onto the table. Now, this didn't frighten them. This intrigued them, to the extent that the one nurse said to the other one of the nurses knows a medium. Let's ask her about this. I'll bet you there's a spirit in that doll. That's what they did. They asked this nurse about it, and she said, yeah. She said, I know a woman who is a medium. I'll bring her over, and we'll hold a seance. It was a joke, just a game. But it didn't turn out to be a game. It turned out to be one of the most horrifying experiences they'd ever have in their life. Mm-hmm. And I've talked with people just recently, as recent as 2 months ago, who know the two nurses. And even today, they don't like to talk about it. They'll never come to our lectures. They don't want to talk about Raggedy Ann, Annabelle at all. So now the woman holds a seance, and she said, there's a spirit of a 6-year-old girl in that doll who was killed in an automobile accident just outside of your apartment house here. Well, there was a 6-year-old child by the name of Annabelle who was killed. But God does not allow the spirit of a child to go into a doll. This was a demon who was posing as that little child to create sympathy to these two young women, which it did. Now this was no longer a doll. This was a child. They would take it for rides. They'd talk to it.
Mhm.
They'd buy clothing for it, jewelry. They treated it just as though it was that little girl who was killed, Annabelle. Now they were giving it a lot of recognition. Soon after the first seance, things would happen in their house, what we refer to as infestation. There would be knocking sounds. They'd see flashing lights in their bedroom at night, shooting across the room. The bed would shake a little bit. It would get icy cold. They'd hear whispering, which we call magic whispering. Now, from time to time, these girls would change shifts. But they were getting a little scared now. So they decided to stay on the same shift all the time, 4 to 12. They'd leave the doll in the bedroom. They'd come home after midnight, put the key in the door, unlock the door, and who do you think is standing there? The Raggedy Ann doll.
Standing there.
Now, that doll has flimsy legs.
Yeah.
If you try to stand it up, you can't. I've seen that doll stand. I've seen a lot of things happen around that doll. Well, this still didn't scare them. But one of the fiancés of one of the girls was against all of this. He said, burn the doll, throw it away, get rid of it. It's evil. Well, he falls asleep one afternoon, a Saturday, and the doll is in a chair not far from him, and the girls are cleaning up the apartment. He wakes up with a start. He said, my God, what a nightmare. He said, I dreamt that that doll was strangling me. He had marks on his throat. Was it psychosomatic? Well, let's see. He gets up, he looks at the doll in the chair, picks it up, and throws it right across the room. You're nothing but a rag doll. You couldn't hurt anyone. With that, Tony, 7 psychic slashes appear on his body.
Wow.
Now, we've seen these kind of slashes. We've filmed them. These slashes come from nowheres. The blood came right through his shirt. The nurses witnessed this. Then, a huge chair rolled across the room. Pictures on the walls came off, started smashing and breaking. Loud pounding sounds. Now they were all frightened. They called the High Episcopal Canon in Hartford, Connecticut. He called Father Richard Nolan, an exorcist, and Father Nolan called us. We went to the apartment. Exorcism was performed immediately over the people, the 3 people, and the apartment. I brought that doll back to my museum. Now, why would I have something like that in a museum? Evidence, proof. The skeptics, the atheists, the first thing they attack you with is, where's the evidence? Where's the proof? This never happened. I not only have the doll, I have film, I have recordings, I have eyewitness accounts from credible people who have seen these phenomena happen in and around that doll. A priest comes to my home one day. Young fella. Has his rectory right here in Connecticut. Ed, I'd like to take you and Lorraine for a ride in my new car. Very proud of it. We went with him. When he took us back, he said, what about this doll everybody's talking about? Because we had shown it on Channel 18, on a TV show we're on. Could I see it? I understand it puts slashes on people. I brought him into the museum. It's in a chair. He looks at it. Just like the guy in Hartford, he walks right over to it, never said a word, picked it up and threw it right across the room. God is more powerful than a devil. I said, yes, Father. God is more powerful than millions of devils. But he wasn't. He found that out. Less than an hour later, driving home on Route 84, his brand new car went out of control. I know what he's talking about because the same thing happened to Lorraine and I when we talked about Amityville one time on Route 84. You can't control the car. Half of his car was sheared off by a tractor-trailer truck. He should have been killed, but he lived. God will only let the devil go so far. The last thing he remembers seeing was the image of that doll. Well, then a detective comes to our house. We're working on the murder of a little child. Lorraine often helps the police through her clairvoyance. I through my knowledge of ritual magic murders. After we're through, he said, Ed, could I go out to the museum there and look around? Sure, I brought him out. Now, this is a homicide detective. You were a cop. These guys are tough guys. They're used to seeing grisly sights, right? He looks around and he said, you know, of all the things in this building here, that doll there, I can't take my eyes off of it, the Raggedy Ann. It was still in the chair. Just then, the phone rang. It was a personal call. I told him I'd be right back in that building.
Mm-hmm.
Everything in there was unholy, unblessed.
Right.
Well, I'm up there talking on the phone. I wasn't even there 10 minutes. When all of a sudden, I hear him coming up the stairs. This guy is a big guy, 6'2", 6'3", over 200 pounds, all muscle. Used to seeing grisly sights. He's shaking. He can't hardly talk. I thought he was having a heart attack. I sat him down. I was going to call an ambulance. There was no 911 then. Called an ambulance, said, no, Ed, it's not that. I said, what's wrong? I just don't want to talk about it. He was embarrassed. Lorraine walked in. He looks at Lorraine. He said, I'll talk to Lorraine about it. I don't want her to ever mention it again. She didn't have to. I knew what he did. I went back down into the building. Everything was knocked over. He had picked up the doll. He had picked up that inanimate object. Its aura mingled with his aura. And something so terrible occurred to that man that he resigned from the police department 3 months later. But that's not the end. We got a group
It's almost
of
the end of the
college
show.
students.
We're almost out of time. So
We're almost out of time.
if you could
Well,
quickly end that one.
A group of college students came one day. One of them said this is nothing but a bunch of bunk. I don't believe in it. He went over to the Raggedy Ann doll, which is in a case, knocking on it. He said, this doll can't do anything. I dare it right now to put slashes on me. I put him out of the building. Less than 3 hours later, that boy was dead. His girlfriend, who had been with him on a motorcycle, said he was laughing about the doll, smashed into a tree, head on, was killed instantly. His girlfriend was in a hospital for over a year.
That's
You
unbelievable.
don't challenge devils. I think we got a picture of the
That's
Raggedy Ann
unbelievable.
there.
Yeah, I think we do somewhere here.
Yeah.
While we're showing this, I think we'd like to tell the website address, wouldn't we?
Yes.
If we could pan in on this here.
Yeah, that's
This will show
Annabelle.
the Annabelle. But why don't you give the website address, Lorraine?
Okay, www.warrens, that's plural with an S, .net,
Okay. And your address is P.O. Box 41,
right?
Monroe, Connecticut, 06468.
That's
And
it.
today is January 26th. The year is 2000.